Good evening, everybody, and thanks to the organizers for inviting me. You want me to go on speaking, or you want me to pause after say 10 minutes so somebody can translate some small bit, or what? Should I continue?
No, sir. Please continue. Please continue.
Okay. So then I will continue with. I will begin with saying that the protests against K-rail have been now going on for almost. I think they began quite seriously by July or so. So it is almost more than 6 months. And what I would like to comment on is that the state government does not seem to be willing to listen to the people who are opposing this project, Although there are very serious problems with this project, and the DPR, which has recently been made public, there are very serious problems. In fact, protests against K-rail now have been going on for almost 6 months. What I find quite rather distressing is that the government does not seem willing to see valid objections of the people, particularly in regard to the way this whole plan has been prepared. You see, if you are undertaking a big project, I will say let's take example of, USA sending the first man to the moon. Okay, I mean, if you want to take up a massive, challenging project like that, then you need a workable plan for it, So, I mean, if you are going to send a man in a spaceship to land on the moon, you must know how to overcome the gravity, how your craft, your spaceship will go from the gravity of Earth to the gravity of moon, and then how it will travel that whole distance, without overheating or busting or any accident. And then finally, it will be able to land the capsule on the moon's surface of the moon, and then the astronauts, they will be able to come down and do the exploration, and then they would come back safely to Earth. So for a project like this, you need solid scientific, technical, and engineering study. Without a proper study, your mission is going to fail, and it could be disastrous also. Take lives of people, lead to loss of lot of wastage of public money, and it would also be embarrassing and humiliating to have a project fail so badly. This is what has happened here, I mean, I have no hesitation in saying that this is the worst plan that could have ever been prepared for a railway line, which you say will carry trains at 200 kilometers per hour in a very, very challenging terrain. As you know, the mid-highlands, where you have all these, sharp changes in elevation, water coming down from the Western Ghats at a very rapid pace and flowing towards the Arabian Sea. This whole area suffers from floods. We have seen massive floods in 2018, then 2019, then last year, 2021. And everybody knows that the whole terrain has very serious problem of bearing capacity, the soil is very soft, and so to make a railway line for 200 kilometer per hour in such a challenging terrain, you have to do a very thorough study, thorough study in a proper manner. You have to study what are the ground conditions. Without knowing the ground conditions, for that you have to do geological investigation, geotechnical investigations, hydrological investigations, environmental studies, all these ground surveys and studies are required to be done. If you don't do them, then it means that either you are highly incompetent or you are highly irresponsible, I mean, there can't be anything else, If somebody prepares a feasibility report and then goes on to prepare a DPR without ground surveys, without traffic survey, then, I mean, the people don't deserve to be on that job, They don't deserve to be preparing a detailed project report for such a challenging project, which will involve expenditure of about not less than 1 lakh crore of public money, and it could be well more than that, So this whole thing, is it began very badly, You see, in 2017, the state government, I mean KRDCL, the organization which is handling this project, it prepared a proposal that we will build a elevated corridor, a corridor which will be like a metro, going overhead on pillars from one end to the other end. So, I mean, anybody who hears of such a thing, anybody who is an engineer, who is aware that what kind of terrain is there in Kerala and what are the requirements for a railway line, would immediately know that such a thing is not possible. But no, such a proposal was prepared by these people, and then the state government sent it to Railway Board. And surprisingly, Railway Board, I think they, without even opening the 50-page or 70-page proposal, they said, okay, we agree with Kerala state government's line, for an elevated corridor. Then, then after that, they engaged a company, a consultant. They say it is based in Paris, and that French consultant and things like that. But it's nothing like that. It's a company manned by Indian engineers, taken from private companies and some retired railway officers and all those things, engineers, and they have the work is being done entirely in India by these people, So when they had assembled their team, then at the last moment, they approached me whether I could guide this team to prepare this first report, which is called preliminary feasibility report. Preliminary feasibility report is the basic groundwork, for any project. This is the beginning. In the preliminary feasibility report, you have to examine everything, say ground conditions. You have to see what is the population pattern, what is the traffic situation in Kerala, what are the alternatives, alternatives like upgrading the existing line, or I mean, every possible thing, you have to see which is likely to have an impact on this thing. So when I started work on that report, then these people said we have got Railway Board's approval for making this line on standard gauge. So anyway, we started work on it, but as we were completing our study, I was beginning to have serious doubts, whether Railway Board has really approved it or not. So I asked them to give me Railway Board's approval, but they failed to give approval. But anyway, because we discussed with this company, because I was consultant to Sistra, this consultant. So we discussed with them, and then we finally decided that we will recommend that this line should be made on broad gauge. It should be integrated with the Indian railway network so that the line can carry high-speed trains as well as the normal trains, which was also the original proposal of KRDCL in 2017, was also for a broad gauge line. And you see, if you are making a line on the same gauge, it has many advantages. You will be using your existing railway stations, so your stations will be right in the middle of the cities. Your cost of construction will reduce substantially by it maybe even half, and then traffic will increase. The capacity utilization will increase by 2 to 3 times. Requirement of land will become almost half, or maybe even less than that. So there is absolutely no point, no sense in making a line on standard gauge. A standalone separate line on standard gauge does not make any sense at all. So we had no hesitation in recommending that you must reconsider, and this line should be built on broad gauge. But instead of taking any decision in this regard, I think this general consultant and KRDCL, they have connived with each other. It is a clear case of connivance, because general consultant has strongly recommended, that you go for broad gauge. And of course, by that time I had left, my job was to, I had agreed to prepare only this report. So I left after this report was submitted to KRDCL. So these KRDCL and this company, general consultant, they connived and colluded with each other, and they prepared very hurriedly feasibility report. Now, feasibility report is a very important document, because here you are required to carry out all necessary studies, all necessary ground surveys, traffic survey, design calculation to see whether this line will be technically feasible, financially viable. This is a very important report. And normally it takes 2 years or maybe even 3 years, because it was going to be for a line for 200 kmph, whereas your existing line is only for 90 and 100 kmph. So it could have taken even 3 years. But these people, they just prepared it in 45 days. No ground surveys, no traffic survey, and they submitted it to Railway Board, taking gauge as standard gauge. And after 6 months, Railway Board also approved it. So I will say a big lapse on the part of Railway Board, if not direct involvement of Railway Board in what these people were plotting and trying to do. Why did Railway Board not examine all these things? After all, it's a very big project. This is, I think, after the bullet train, that Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train, this is the biggest project right now. This will be the biggest project, in the history of Indian Railways so far. It is bigger than Eastern Freight Corridor. It is bigger than Western Freight Corridor. It is bigger than Kashmir Rail Link project. It is the second biggest project in the history of Indian Railway, at least after independence, if not from the very beginning. So how come when a feasibility report goes to Railway Board for such a massive project, and it does not, anybody who will just open the report will see that it does not have any reports of ground surveys. No topographical maps are there. So it means something very fishy, something very bad, on part of railway board to have given in principle approval. Because in principle approval means you are allowing them to spend another 100 crore rupees. I mean, these people have spent about 40 crores on this general consultant, this so-called Paris-based general consultant. I think they have paid him by now about 40 crore rupees. Now you are giving them permission to spend 100 crore rupees more without bothering to see whether feasibility is there. I mean, this techno-economic feasibility, whether it is there or not. Without seeing that, you are approving it. I mean, this is absolutely unprecedented and absolutely undesirable. Now, you see, then what happens after that? This feasibility report is approved, I think, in December 2019, it was approved. Then within 6 months, they prepared DPR. Okay, and now that DPR is sent to Railway Board. In June, I think, in end of June 2020, this report is sent to Railway Board, DPR. Now, DPR is there with Railway Board for 1.5 years. And there was a meeting in Railway Board about in the month of January, where all these people had also gone, KRDCL, state governments, top officials, they had made a presentation to Railway Board. There is very little discussion on techno-economic viability. Nobody said anything that you have not carried out any studies, that your cost analysis is not proper. And you see, if you people are aware, Niti Aayog, they had examined this DPR, and they had raised very serious objections. They had analyzed the cost estimate, and they said that according to us, the cost will be twice of what they have estimated. KRDCL's estimate is about 65,000 crores, and Niti Aayog said it will be double of that. And Niti Aayog also raised many other objections. For example, how do you say that standard gauge line will be technically feasible? Even this point is there, that standard gauge is narrower than broad gauge, so the loading will be even more on the ground. So you have not examined all these things, So this, despite observations, these negative observations, very strong observations of Niti Aayog, Railway Board is not listening to any of these things. I mean, Railway Board should have immediately returned the DPR to KRDCL and withdrawn the in-principle approval. Because Niti Aayog also pointed out that cost estimation is absolutely baseless, because they have not given any past accepted rates. When you make an estimation, you have to give what are the past accepted rates. Say for example, viaducts. Viaducts have been made in Kochi Metro also, Chennai Metro, Bangalore. All these areas, viaducts have been made. In different parts of the country also, tunnels have been made in all these areas. Similarly, cuttings have been made, embankments have been made. Southern Railway has made embankments in Kerala itself. So you have to first see what are the prevailing rates. What is the cost of embankment, 1 kilometer long embankment? What is the cost of a viaduct, say 1 kilometer long viaduct of certain height? And then you have to do a rate analysis. So Niti Aayog pointed out that their cost estimate is totally baseless. So despite all these things, Railway Board was not, they were tolerating all this thing, they had turned, deaf ears and blind eyes, not willing to see anything, that is wrong with this DPR. So anyway, there was a lot of protest by the people in Kerala, and even opposition parties also joined. And then as a result, they had to release the DPR. Okay. Now that's something good, because now we have DPR in the public domain. All the experts, all the people who are interested, they can go through it. Now I have examined this DPR absolutely thoroughly, everything I have seen, and I have written 4 articles in a series of 4 articles on this. And I have pointed out each and everything which is wrong with this DPR. And these are very, very serious things, Now, for example, there is a geotechnical report, They have taken samples, they have done boreholes in the ground, about 120. Then they have taken samples and then they have tested them, So these results, which are there in the DPR, it's this chapter on geotechnical investigations is about 900 pages. That's quite big, So in DPR, there was no mention of what this report really says. But then I started I looked into this whole report, and what did I find? That 93% of the locations are showing very weak ground. Okay, very weak. 6% are showing weak, and only 1% is showing strong ground. Okay, but when you see their costing, cost of embankments, in chapter on costing, what they have taken there, that very weak is only 1%. So 93% becomes 1%. Okay, and 6%, which is weak, they have taken as 20%. And strong, which is only 1% as per the geotechnical report, becomes 79%. Now, this is, something for which people should be dismissed from service. There's some very tough action should be taken against people who do such things. Your own report says that 93% of the ground is very weak. And you are making a DPR for a line which will carry trains at 200 km/h on standard gauge. We don't have any embankments in India on standard gauge. This Mumbai-Ahmedabad line, which will be on standard gauge, will be entirely elevated with only 1 or 2 kilometers of embankments. All the metros are either elevated or they are in tunnels. There is hardly any embankment. So you are going to make a line on standard gauge for 200 kmph, and you have done this kind of manipulation, this kind of fudging. I have written in my last concluding article that this is a white collar crime. It is a white collar crime to make a DPR like this. And then, if you, what I found is, that this line has got so many curves, horizontal curves, vertical curves, it has got 201 horizontal curves and 235 vertical curves, The total length of horizontal curves on this line is more than the length of horizontal curves on the existing line. This is another shocking feature, And then there are so many vertical curves, And you see, if you add up the total, going, the alignment is going up and then down, up and down like this, in a sine wave kind of thing, So if you add up the total rise and total fall, it comes to about 1400 meters. 700 meter of rise and 700 meter of fall. And now just compare with Kashmir railing project, from Katra to Srinagar. The cumulative rise and fall there is only 1300 meters. So this line will have more rise and fall than the Kashmir railway line. You see, this kind of this alignment is going to be a roller coaster alignment with horizontal curves, vertical curves all over. This will be a roller coaster alignment. And you see, roller coaster alignment can cause so much of parasitic motions, roll and so many up and down, bouncing of coaches, trains, nosing left and right, that it may not be possible to run trains at even 100 or 120 kmph on this line. And these people, I'm sure they were not even aware what is, they say Paris-based consultant, and they fail to see this thing, that their alignment is so much full of horizontal curves, vertical curves, so much of rise and fall, accumulative about 1400 meters, more than Kashmir railing project, and they didn't know anything. What will be the implications of this kind of thing? So, I have said it's a white collar crime, it's a fraud, it is a scam. But I am also inclined to feel that they are also thoroughly incompetent. These people, the railway board and the country as a whole, has to think what kind of consultants you are getting for your projects. Are you going to get this kind of project consultants, that you tell the whole country and the media that we have got an international consultant based in Paris and all these things, hi-fi things, so you are trying to befool people. You are trying to make fun of people. You have got somebody who doesn't even know how to prepare a feasibility report. You are preparing feasibility report without ground surveys, without traffic surveys, and now you are not, your own report says that 93% ground is very weak. In your costing, you are taking it at 1%, and then you don't even know that your alignment is a roller coaster alignment. And you see, I'll tell you one very interesting fact, that they say this consultant is Paris-based, that is in France. And the first high-speed line which France made, from Paris to Lyons. Paris is in the north and Lyons is in the southeast of the country, on the border with Italy. So it's about a 450 kilometer line. So that time left government was in France, was ruling France. I think Stang was the president of this thing. So they said, this line we will make so that every French man can afford it. Every person, it will not be only for the elite, top few people, it will be for everyone. So they had given instructions that you have to design the line in such a way that cost is kept down. Okay, you must make it as economically as possible so that everybody can afford the fare and they can travel by this train. So these, French engineers, because the terrain is a rolling terrain, not like our mid highlands, which is having sharp, rise and fall, but that's a very gentle, what we call as rolling terrain, So they decided that we will adopt steep gradients, okay, so that we don't have to make too many viaducts and too many tunnels, because they are the things, which cost maximum, A viaduct may cost about 5 to 10 times the cost of embankment, and a tunnel can cost as much as 15 times the cost of embankment. So their aim was to minimize viaducts and minimize tunnels. and make the line on embankment or cuttings. But they knew immediately that it could become a roller coaster alignment if we do it like this, because horizontal curves are already there. Now you are adding vertical curves, so it becomes a roller coaster alignment. And there are technical papers on this, So then they designed the alignment in such a way, and they designed their train, TGV trains. They have a suspension system, which is very different from Shinkansen or ICE German trains. They have a special suspension system to take care of these vertical changes in to absorb the vertical curves, the bouncing and all these things, So this problem was identified by the French engineers, and they found a solution for that also. Now here you have a roller coaster alignment in Kerala, and people are, these people are not even aware of this thing. So this is a point, which should worry everybody, including the Chief Minister of Kerala or the political leadership of Kerala, that what kind of consultants you have got, what kind of engineers you have got in KRDCL, who do not know how to prepare a feasibility report, who don't know how to prepare a DPR, who don't know that your alignment could be a roller coaster alignment, who want to make Kozhikode station in an underground tunnel, which is going just at a depth of 25 meters in the most congested part of Kozhikode, And this tunnel is about 6.78 kilometer long. And the whole station will be in a underground, it will be in a cavern underground, 42-meter wide cavern. And they have not done any building condition survey. If you are going to make a tunnel at a depth of just 25 meter below, in a very congested part of the city where there are multi-storied buildings also, you are required to do a building condition survey. So that you have to ensure that if you are going to make a tunnel at such a shallow depth, it will not cause cracks in the buildings. And then this tunnel will also go under a river. So you have to do a thorough geological investigation to make sure that water will not enter into the tunnels, Because the river is flowing, the ground will be soft. It may not be even possible to construct the tunnel. So you have to carry out a thorough geological investigation also. Similarly, then you see, I pointed out this thing that Thrissur station will be on a 8.2 kilometer long viaduct, there are 3 viaducts, continuous. Total length 8.2 kilometer. And then the existing railway lines, they have to be shifted eastwards, towards the east. People who have been to Thrissur station will know that this will mean dismantling the existing station. How are you going to shift the existing line number 1 and line number 2 by 10 to 12 meters without dismantling the station? This also is, DPR is silent about it. So, you see, this is absurd, And then this station will be 100 meter wide, The station building will be 100 meter wide. Are you making a Bombay VT there? Bombay VT station or Bombay Central station or New Delhi station? Why do you need a 100 meter wide wide station building at Thrissur, then same at Kochi Valley, then at Ernakulam? These are all elevated, all 3 places, Kochi Valley, Ernakulam and Thrissur, they are all elevated stations on pillars, and they are 100 meter wide. These people are more interested in real estate development than building a railway line. They are making 100 meter wide station, probably to have lot of office space and commercial space on the station building. It doesn't make any sense that you should have such a huge station building at these places. And no geological investigation, no hydrological investigation. So, there should be, I think even Mr. Sridharan, who is a very reputed engineer, he has called it a idiotic project. Idiotic project. This is the word he has used. So, I think the state government, the chief minister and other top authorities should really, listen to what is being said about the DPR. They should call for the DPR and really see what is there inside, Can such a DPR be, in fact, they should tell Railway Board that we are state government. We have no experience of construction, of operation, maintenance of railway lines. You check everything properly. And the state government should not make any comment on this, whether this line will be built or not. You say that only when Railway Board has thoroughly examined everything, technical aspects, economical aspects, then only we will think of making this line. So the state government should not make any assertion that we are going to make this line as per the DPR. This is what they are saying. And I think it's very wrong. They shouldn't be saying this at all because they are not experts in railway engineering. They don't know, they have no experience. So they should, in fact, state government should request Railway Board that you are the experts. You please examine every aspect of the DPR. And if there are any deficiencies and all these things that people are pointing out, please let us know. So that if necessary, we will ourselves drop this project. We will not pursue this project at all. So I think I have covered most of the things. The most serious problem. There are many other things, For example, these bore logs, for samples which they have collected, Many of, at least more than half of them are more than 1 kilometer away from the railway line. It shows that you are trying to manipulate the geotechnical report. And you have failed even in that also because your geotechnical report says that 93% of the ground is very weak. So despite trying every manipulation, you have not been able to get any favorable result from your geotechnical report because geotechnical report, I will again repeat, says that 93% is very weak and only 1% can be taken as strong. So this itself is a proof that this DPR should be thrown into the Arabian Sea. This DPR does not deserve any consideration at all. So I think I will conclude with this. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer those questions. Somebody has said, please arrange to post these articles. So these articles, which I have written 4 articles, they are already on my Twitter account, from where you can download the PDF also. Okay. But anyway, I will send a copy of them to Mr. Khan. You can circulate it to people who want, because everybody may not be using Twitter or everybody may not be going to websites. So I will provide a PDF copy to Mr. Khan so it can be given to anybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, I am Thomas here.
Yeah, Mr. Thomas, I know you well.
Sir,
But I must say, Mr. Thomas has made a lot of contribution. He is the person who received the report of Niti Aayog through RTI. He also received copy of Southern Railway's comments, and these two documents have proved very useful in examining the DPR. And Mr. Thomas is also actively pursuing court cases against land acquisition. So I must compliment him for the work that he's been doing consistently for, I think, last 1 year or more than 1 year.
Sir, last 2 years. Thank you very much, sir.
2 years. Okay.
Sir, one more thing. See, recently one Malayalam channel has shown that instead the technology has improved, and now the committee has decided to allow LIDAR survey instead of field level FLS. See, I have been trying to get a copy of this report for the last 2 weeks. I was not successful. This channel I put in contact. I even asked Mr. C.R. Neelakandan sir also to get a copy. I asked Babu Raj, who always goes to the channel for discussion. They have not given me so far. They have not given me the report. The channel had once showed in the once in scrolling that the railway committee has decided to have, along with the change in the upgradation of the technology, they have decided to have LIDAR survey instead of the field level survey. Yeah, I've been trying to get the copy. I didn't get it so far.
So let me give you. I mean, you see, KRDCL is a bluff master. Okay, they are a bluff master. They try to fool people, misinform them, and all those things. You see, what is FLS? Final Location Survey. Final Location Survey, what you do is you mark the alignment on the ground. Okay. Because you have done survey by LIDAR. LIDAR is a method of remote sensing. People do not go to take levels on the ground. Everything is taken through radar, through this LIDAR. Okay, so final location means that you mark the alignment on the ground, the center line of the alignment on the ground, and then you check levels, the coordinates, the X coordinate, Y coordinate, and Z coordinate at say 1 or 2 locations in every kilometer. So FLS is a process of verification. Okay, it's a process of verification, because any remote sensing survey, okay, or any survey, even a normal survey using theodolites, there can be errors, and there can also be foul play by people. There can be negligence, human failure, machine failure, or whatever it is. So there is a lot of scope for mistakes and errors. So FLS is a process of verification. So there is no question of what is more accurate, because FLS is not a tool. In FLS, what you do is, there is something called, spot levels. You take spot levels. You pick up 1 or 2 locations in each kilometer, and you check what is the X, Y, Z coordinate. And then you can see, okay, here it is showing that viaduct is 10 meter high. Okay, then it can measure. Then you see what is according to the LIDAR survey. Is it 10 or it is 5? So if you find discrepancy, then it means LIDAR survey was not correct. So this is a method of verification. It's not a question, you see, what that railway report was that earlier people used to do dumpy level and theodolites. They used to go to the ground and measure the levels. So now that is not required. Now these remote sensing methods like LIDAR survey are there. You can do LIDAR surveys for the purpose of making your alignment. But for verification, you have to do checking of spot levels. So KRDCL, as usual, is trying to bluff people. Okay, if that is why I think they are not showing the document. Let them show the documents. What that document shows, it says. Yeah.
Somebody speaking. Sir, one more thing.
Yeah.
See, all these matters you are mentioning, sir, this you have to write a letter to the railway board, a registered post, and immediately after that, we will file an RTI asking them what action you have taken on this. We will seek for an ATR, action taken report on the matter raised by Sri ALOK Kumar Varma ji on such and such a date. So immediately you write a letter to the, I think it's you can write a letter to the railway board incorporating all this 93%, 1% shift, etc., which the railway board might not have noticed. And again, to the Sistra also, that they have erred in such a big manner that it is going to be a big scam for them also. So they will also try to interfere in this matter.
You see, as far as Sistra is concerned, you know, I think they know what is happening. So there is no point in, no point in right. But yes, I agree with you. I will send a complete report to Railway Board. But I have one more suggestion, you know, that like this, you know, there are, you know, these samitis, these people, you know, these groups in Kerala, they can also send this, you know, that this is a 4-page report by such a such person who was associated with this project for making the preliminary study, and then you can also send it to the Chief Minister and to the Railway Board. So people of Kerala, the groups in Kerala can also do it. But of course, I will do it. I will send to Railway Board. I have not written anything to Railway Board so far. But yes, now that DPR is there and I have written all the 4 articles, I will now write to Railway Board.
Excuse me, ALOK Kumar, can you kind of send a copy of the letter that you propose to write to the Railway Board, to the Chief Minister and to the Chief Secretary of the State also?
No. What I am saying is that I will write to Railway Board, okay? But people of Kerala, like your group, I mean, you are, I think 40-50 people are there. You can send these articles, you know, to Chief Minister and Railway Board with signed by so many people of Kerala.
Okay, that we will do. Definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Because that will have impact, you know, because I mean, you people are there in Kerala, you are also directly affected, and you can pursue the matter also very effectively.
Definitely, we will do once we receive.
So my suggestion is that you can have, you know, you can send it to Chief Minister and other authorities in the state, and also to Railway Board. And then then I think that will also be effective, you know. But of course, I will also send.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I think that your document, the speech, is in here as recorded. Whether we shall release it to the public and the press.
Yeah, of course you can. You know, whatever I have said, you can release to the media and the public. You know.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's not a private discussion or a confidential discussion. It's an open discussion, so anybody can hear and see what I have said. So you can share it with everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sir,
you see, whatever I will just say one thing. Whatever I have said, it is not a question of my opinion. I have given the facts. The facts can be verified from the DPR. Whatever I have said, you know, it can be verified from the feasibility report and the DPR. So I'm talking of facts. I'm not talking about opinion, that this is my opinion. No, I'm talking about facts.
Sir, there are one or two questions in the chat box.
Yeah, please.
Sir, will you kindly elaborate on the effect of parasitic forces on the security and speed of locomotion of the coaches?
Effect of?
Parasitic forces.
Yeah, parasitic. You see, railway lines, you see one major difference between a railway line and a highway, a road, is that road can follow the contours of the ground. Okay. I mean, a road can go up and down, up and down. It can have a lot of curves, because road vehicles are normally running at 60 to 70, 100, not more than 100 km/h speed. And the road vehicle, because it is rubber tire on road vehicle can be stopped within 50 to 100 meters. Braking distance is small. So if there are a lot of curves, vertical and horizontal curves in a highway, in a road, it does not affect safety. Okay, I mean, if you are driving your car or your motorcycle, you may have to slow down, when there is a up and down curve, going up and down and this like, so you will have to slow down, but it will not affect your safety. But it is not so with railway lines, First of all, a train takes about 1 to 2 kilometers to stop. A train running at 200 kilometers per hour will take more than 2 kilometers to come to a halt. If the driver applies even emergency brake, even then it will take about 2 kilometers before a train can be stopped. So railway lines are made to have minimum curves, minimum horizontal and vertical curves. If you are having too many curves, then there will be a lot of bouncing, I mean, the train will go up and down, start bouncing. Then it can, what you call as nosing, going left, right, you will feel all kinds of jerks, It will be very uncomfortable to travel in a train, You can compare it to roller coaster, You have roller coaster in amusement parks. So, you can compare with that. I mean, roller coasters are, of course, purely for entertainment. So they have got a lot of this thing, but the effect is similar, going up and down and then left and right, So these parasitic motions, these bouncing and nosing and roll effect, they can cause serious accidents, derailments, and you will have to slow down your train frequently. It will become very difficult for train driver to control the speed of train. So my estimate is, because I have got a lot of experience on alignments and all these things. I have done a lot of studies of high-speed trains. I can say quite confidently that this line will not be able to carry trains at more than 120 kilometers per hour. This is my estimate, I mean, of course, it will require, because if you want me to say it with 100% confidence, then I need some backup, some facilities, to carry out thorough analysis, But my first reaction is, after careful consideration, is that this line will not be able to carry trains at more than 120 kilometers per hour. So what is the point in making this line,
Okay, sir. Thank you. There is one more question.
Yeah.
How much distance vibrations from train movements could affect nearby existing buildings?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Now here, what is happening is, that normally for a railway line, we take about 40-meter wide land, Okay, it's a double line. Then from center line of the railway line, 20 meter on left and 20 meter on right. So you take 40-meter width of line. Now, the experience has shown that beyond 40 meters, the effect of ground vibrations will not be very significant. Okay, even for 200, 250, because this line, if you are making it for 200, then as DPR also says that it can carry tilting trains at 250 kmph also. So, but here what they are doing is they are taking just, even for embankment, they are taking only 20 to 25 meter wide land. So in this case, there is a very good possibility that there will be serious effect of ground vibrations on the buildings which will be near the railway line. And similarly, effect of noise will also be quite severe. So a proper study was required to be done, because you see, Kerala, people are living everywhere, I mean, the population, urban population is scattered. There are hundreds of towns and small cities in Kerala. So this railway line is going through very busy areas, So this is a very serious issue. And these people, as as I've said, they are incompetent, irresponsible. They have not done any such studies. So they should have done, but they have not done. So there is a serious issue of ground vibrations and noise also. Because you see, a train, when it goes at a speed of more than 160, then aerodynamic noise is also created, which can cause pain in your eardrums, When a train is going at 200 kilometers in front of you, it can create pain in your eardrums also. So that's a serious issue, and this they have not examined. Any other?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sir, Varmaji, I have two small questions.
Yeah, Mr. Punya. Yeah. We have also interacted quite a lot.
The Kerala people are saying that you have to say something more on this gauge issue, the broad gauge versus the standard gauge issue.
Okay.
The Kerala people are saying that in India, the Indian Railway Board is planning to have nearly 10 long distance tracks they are going to construct, that all are in standard gauge. Is it correct or something? They are giving the place also from this one to this one, the Mysore to Chennai, something like that. Is it correct that they are going to, the Indian Railway Board is planning to have 10 important lines on standard gauge? Second question is, you told in your speech that there is the bore on this geotechnical survey. They are taking only 120. That means it comes nearly about, on an average, one bore on 5 kilometers each.
Yeah.
Is it sufficient? Is it sufficient for a terrain like Kerala?
No, this is
bore, these two things maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So I will answer that your second question first. You see, there is a report by RDSO also on this ground surveys. And what they are saying is that you should take about 5 samples per kilometer, not 1 in 5. So they have taken they have taken 1/20th of the requirement. They should have taken 500 into 5, about 2,500 boreholes, not just 120. So this is highly deficient. And then, as I have said, they have not done hydrological studies and they have not done geological studies. Now, coming to the question of gauge. As I have said, gauge is so important that if you make a line on standard gauge, it becomes a standalone line, not connected to the existing railway network. And the stations will be at different locations, as places like Ernakulam, Kochi, then Kottayam, Chenganur, Kollam. The stations are 5 to 15 kilometers away from the existing railway stations from the city center. So the disadvantages are enormous. If you make a line on standard gauge, that disadvantages are enormous. You can your trains, high-speed trains cannot go to places like, say, Coimbatore, Kanyakumari, Mangalore, and even Madurai and places like this, because you are on the standard gauge, so you cannot use Indian railway track. Similarly, then all your Rajdhani, Shatabdi, and Mail Express trains, they cannot come on this line. Okay. If you make it on broad gauge, then at least 30 trains, presently there are about 50 to 60 Mail Express trains in Kerala, which are going outside Kerala. So at least 30 pairs of your Mail Express train could come immediately on the new line, and they would save about 4 to 5 hours, of running time. So the disadvantages of making a line on standard gauge are enormous. In the history of railways in the whole world, there are only 2 cases where people have gone for a different gauge. Okay, only 2 cases in the world. One is of Japan. Now, Japan was having meter gauge railway lines. On meter gauge, you cannot go at a speed more than 130 or at the most 160 kmph. So for making their bullet train lines, which were for 200 to 350 kilometers per hour, they had to adopt a broad gauge. Okay. Now there are 4 broad gauges in the world. One is called the British standard gauge. Why it is called standard gauge is because it was made a standard by British Parliament about 170 years ago. That time, different companies were using different gauges. So British Parliament passed and took a decision that this will be the standard gauge for Britain. Gradually, many other European countries, Western European countries followed that gauge. So there is standard gauge, there is Russian gauge, there is Iberian gauge, which is in Spain and Portugal, and then there is Indian broad gauge, which is in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, and then outside in Chile and Argentina. These are the 6 main countries, which are having Indian broad gauge. So Japan adopted standard gauge because it needed a broad gauge. Okay, they could have adopted Russian gauge or they could have adopted Indian broad gauge, but they chose to adopt the European standard gauge. And probably the reason was that that France and Germany, who are having standard gauge, were also developing high-speed trains. So they could learn from each other, and all these things were there. Then second country is Spain. Now Spain has got broad gauge, which is very similar to Indian broad gauge, and they have been running trains at 200 to 250 kilometers per hour on their railway system for last 20 years. But they have a problem. Their neighbor France and then other Western European countries, they are all on standard gauge. Only Spain is on broad gauge. Okay. Now, when European Union, it was formed about, I think 50 years ago. So European Union has a policy that all railway systems will be made uniform. Okay. Different countries have different signaling systems, different power supply systems. Somebody has DC, somebody has AC, somebody has 3000 volts, somebody has 2.5 kilovolts. Then there are different gauge also. Most of the countries are having standard gauge, but Spain and Portugal are having broad gauge. So European Union has this policy. Under that policy, Spain has adopted standard gauge for the new lines, for these high-speed lines. And they are being funded by European Union. They are getting financial assistance from European Union to make their new lines on standard gauge. So only 2 countries in the world, Japan and Spain. There is no third country in the world which has adopted a different gauge for a high-speed line. And both of them have valid reasons. India has absolutely no reason
So,
to
sir, then
go.
what about China?
China has a standard gauge only. I mean, everything is on the same gauge. You see, it's a question of going for a different gauge. China has got standard gauge, so they are having their high-speed line also on the same gauge. Now, Russia has got Russian broad gauge. So they are having 250 kilometer trains on broad gauge, and now they are going for a high-speed train, bullet train line also on the broad gauge. So nobody has gone for a different gauge, you know. When you see, when you make a different gauge, then it becomes a isolated line, which leads to a lot of disadvantages. Now, you see, I will tell you why this, you know, this Mumbai-Ahmedabad line, it was also proposed on broad gauge. Okay. But then when these Japanese people came, you know, with their offer, you know, that we will give you long-term loan, but that loan comes attached with a lot of conditions, you know, then board, had decided, okay, that we will make it on standard gauge. And I can tell you, Railway Board did not do any comparative study of advantages and disadvantages of broad gauge versus standard gauge. You see, for Chennai, Bangalore, this DPR was prepared by German companies. They recommended go for broad gauge. Okay. The Sistra of France, not this Sistra, which is working in Kerala, but Sistra of France and two other companies, they did the first feasibility report for Mumbai-Ahmedabad line, and they recommended broad gauge. So Railway Board has taken, I have no hesitation, Railway Board has taken a wrong decision, wrong because it is thoroughly arbitrary. Railway Board has taken an arbitrary decision to build Mumbai-Ahmedabad on standard gauge. And now they want to make other bullet train lines also on the standard gauge. Okay. But let me tell you, that is very debatable. And as I have said, that is being questioned, not by me alone, but by many people, that why are you making it on standard gauge? But as far as 200 kilometer is concerned, Railway Board has approved Pune-Nasik line, which is 250 kilometer per hour line on broad gauge. So there is no reason why Kerala line should be made on standard gauge. So when they say, you know, that, as I have said, you know, KRDCL, they are bluff masters, you know. They are trying to bluff the people of Kerala, trying to befool them that standard gauge is the future of India. How do you say standard gauge is the future of India? You know, they say that trains cannot run at more than 160 kilometer per hour on broad gauge. Do you have any report? Is there any study? Is there any order of Railway Board that broad gauge cannot carry trains at more than 160 kmph? So they are just trying to bluff you, you know, bluff the people of Kerala, to befool the people of Kerala. You know, this is really disgusting. The way KRDCL is behaving is disgusting, you know. Making all these people are so shameless. They keep on saying the same thing. They are saying this thing you go to their website, you go anywhere, they are saying that you cannot run trains at more than 160 kmph. And your Sistra, France, recommended broad gauge for the Mumbai-Ahmedabad line. And French company, this German company, they recommended broad gauge for the Chennai-Bangalore line. So don't believe any of this nonsense. Just tell them, you show us one report and one study which says that broad gauge, that 200 kilometer per hour, 250 kilometer per hour, or 300 kilometer per hour is not possible on broad gauge, or that broad gauge is inferior and standard gauge is superior in any way. You tell us one way in which broad gauge is inferior and standard gauge is superior. So they are just telling nonsense. And somebody should stop them, you know. This nonsense should be stopped. And the best way to stop is, I think the media also has a responsibility here. Media should demand you show us a report, you show us a study that this line cannot be made on broad gauge. You know, they are even saying that if this line is made on broad gauge, then the existing trains cannot run on it. You see, I can tell you, I can give you a list of at least 50 railway lines in the world which are carrying normal trains and 200 km/h trains. You may have heard of Beijing-Shanghai line. This is one of the busiest railway lines in the world. It is carrying freight trains at 120 to 160 kmph. It is taking passenger trains at 200 to 250 kmph. So, I mean, this is a standard. This is a practice all over the world that 200, 250 km/h lines, they carry high-speed trains, they carry normal passenger trains, and they also carry freight trains. So all this nonsense being uttered by KRDCL must be stopped. Yeah, I hope I have clarified the things.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any questions? Okay, then we can conclude, sir.
Yeah.
So we are coming to the end of this very impressive. And on behalf of the Krail-b-ne Samara Janagiya Samiti, we express our sincere gratitude to ALOK Kumar Varma sir for the interesting and very informative speech. And thank you, sir.
And from my part also, I should thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I should also compliment people of Kerala who are raising their voice. You know, I mean, it is really good when government is not listening. Then you have to shout. So I'm happy that people of Kerala are now shouting and demanding that you explain everything to us or you abandon this project. You know, so I must compliment people of Kerala for raising their voice. Thank you.